Hey, Rick Rawlings here. We're back for part 3 of our look at getting started in Wings Over Flanders Fields. Today we're going to take a look at the campaign, which is probably what this simulator is most known for, creating a reasonable experience of what it was like to be a pilot in World War I, starting a new career, flying for one of 4 air services, climbing your way up the ranks, hopefully surviving long enough to make ace, transitioning from one plane to the next, and eventually, if you're lucky, making it to the armistice, which I have to say in at least, well, probably over a decade of playing this game, I have never actually done. So we'll see if you're lucky enough to make it there. Before we dive into the campaign, I do want to review very quickly the workshop settings that are going to have the most impact on your campaign experience. We went over them in a previous video, so we're not going to look at everything, but just what's going to really impinge upon your campaign experience. So the very first one is going to be campaign videos, on or off. When you go and every time you go into the campaign, you'll get a little video. You can click through it with the space bar. You can leave that as you like. All of the weather options, mostly the AI weather generator or historical, this is going to determine what days you fly on. So historical will have you flying more or less on the days that actually had good enough weather, keeping in mind that different parts of the front would have experienced different days of flying. If you have played this a couple of times and you want to try to do something different, you can do AI weather generation. And then once you've done that, you can create new fronts, you can reset the weather, you can fine tune it if you want. But for the first couple of times, I would probably just stick with historical just to get the feel for what it was like for the pilots back in the day. All of these graphical details are going to be important depending on your PC power. So in quick combat, basically you've got 2 or 3 planes, 4 or 5 planes in the sky. That's all that's rendered. When you go into the campaign and you fly missions, pretty much every plane that is in the area is going to be tracked by the simulator. If planes run into each other, fights are going to happen out of your line of sight. And so it can really take a toll on your resources. So you may find that graphical settings that work great for you in quick combat don't work so good in the campaign. Especially later in the war, 1918, things get pretty hairy. If your PC is a little bit a little bit older, you may need to dial back some of these settings, but you can play around with them and give them a try. So if you're wondering why it's not running smoothly in the campaign, especially like in 1918 as it was in the quick combat, that's kind of why the game is rendering a whole bunch more aircraft and keeping track of a whole series of events that are outside of your line of sight. So all of these can impact that. We talked about dots. That's important in the campaign, particularly more so than probably in quick combat because you're going to be trying to find targets at a distance. Having the dots set will give you just a little speck rather than a full label, and will help you spot the enemy about this. You can set it up so you can try to spot them about the same time that they spot you. Map waypoints are on or off. This is if you want to do visual navigation, you would turn them off. If you just want to have, you just figure your pilot knows his way around town, you can leave them on. And then these other things are mostly going to be just your choice. The airfield complexity will probably impact your frame rates around airfields for some of the more difficult ones. Going over to more settings, regional air activity is going to have a huge impact. It ranges from very light to heavy. This is going to be hugely PC specific. So if you have a really new PC with a really new video card and lots of RAM, you can work your way down here. If not, you can work your way back. Now within the game, it will also adjust within these parameters. So a very light in 1918 is going to be different than a very light in 1916, early 1916 or 1915. So the game already shifts a little bit within these larger categories, but you can adjust those as your PC can handle it, and also as you want an additional challenge. We talked about forced encounters. Take whatever you put here and then funnel it towards your line of flight, your flight path. So if you turn it off, it doesn't do that at all. If you put it on medium, it sort of pushes the planes more towards your area. And if you put it as high, as I have now switched to for this campaign, so hopefully we'll get something in the mission I'm going to run, it will bring everybody kind of down on top of you or close to down on top of you. Campaign mission frequency is how many missions you're going to fly. We'll talk a little bit about that once we're in the campaign menu, but you can change if you want to, have more missions per day, or if you want to have days without missions, you can change these, or you can go with historical, and the game will handle that for you. You'll have less missions typically in the winter season. You'll go back into heavy, usually the spring offensives. Usually they have a lot of air cover. Your campaign date advance, I strongly recommend manual auto. This allows you to advance the date on your own. It will also auto advance once you reach the end of the day of flying. I don't know why there's any reason to put it on auto. Player stats, if you're role playing and you just want to track your pilot in the campaign itself, turn these off. Oh, sorry, that's not log right there. Player stats is stuff like hit percentage for bullets and things like that. I know they're low, so I don't keep a running tab on that. The log is the thing you want. So if you are flying a campaign and you only want to keep track of your pilot in the campaign itself, have this button selected. If you want to do if you want to pretend you're doing some training missions at the beginning, you want that to count towards your pilot's flight time, you can log it all temporarily while you're doing that, and then turn it off. If you don't care about any of that, you can just log everything and see how many hours that particular pilot has flown. Transfer requests will have an impact. Always approved, subject to review. Keep in mind that even if you click always approved, you still have to fly several missions between your request and the actual transfer. So you can't just advance time. You actually have to fly missions to make that happen. Historical mission types kind of focuses the types of missions in the period of the war that you're in to be something more along the lines of what pilots would do. All of these things will probably have a bigger impact in the campaign than they will in quick combats. AI never backs down. You're going to be sometimes you can run into multiple flights per mission, and you'll have more than one combat per mission. So if you have this two on, AI never backs down, pretty much anybody you run into is going to attack you all day long. That can make campaigns very challenging, so I would probably recommend off. Enhanced skill levels, we talked about this on the forums since my last video. It seems like this is just a morale booster for the AI, making them more likely to stick around. Probably off is good for campaign play. I also read somebody had responded to a post of mine saying that AI reduced vision. You should probably put that on because that limits, as I thought it probably would, but I didn't know, limits the ability for pilots to see behind you through clouds, things like that. So putting the AI reduced vision is on. AI damage affects skills. This means if they're wounded or their plane is damaged, it's going to sort of probably impact their morale or certainly their ability to control their plane. This one will have a big impact to aces and historical pilots. If you put all, some squadrons that you join, like 56 Squadron, for example, everybody in there is like going to be an ace, and you probably won't have any regular Joes to kind of follow along and see how they do. Aces in the game don't die until their historical date, so you're going to see a lot of weirdness where aces get shot down periodically, but they don't die. So I find top aces to be pretty good. Only the highest scoring aces will show up, and everybody else will just be regular pilots. These two will be important for your flights. The Central Powers typically did not run fighter sweeps into enemy territory much. So if you have limited incursion on, that will be historical. And if you are flying sort of like behind friendly line missions, you won't run into a lot of enemy fighters. You might run into some recon and some bombers, but that's about it. If you turn this off, you'll have albatrosses over your airfield, right? Allies or Entente actually did go over the lines a lot, so off is realistic for that. If you're flying for the Germans and you're doing a friendly line patrol, you can expect to see all kinds of Entente fighters. These two just determine flight in bad weather. Up here, always lead or by rank, player flight position. So this is when you fly the missions. By rank means that if you're not the flight leader, you won't be able to lead the flight. So if you always want to be in charge and have people following you and not worry about formation flying, you would select that one. These two will impact how long your missions are. The lower the altitude you have, the closer the target, the shorter the mission will be. You don't spend as much time climbing up. Getting to altitude, these planes are very slow to get to altitude. So usually the longest part of the mission is gaining altitude and then coming in to land. Even it takes a long time to get down if you don't want to shred your wings. So if you set these to low and always closest, it will put everybody on the same playing field down at that altitude, and it will make your missions run a lot quicker. These other two, claims and promotions. For the way that I play campaigns, which I'll talk about, I like the easiest promotion because it allows you to fly the fewest missions and get promotions. Claims, if you pick normal or easiest, you are going to have to put in for claims. You'll have to, I'll show you, there's a field you have to type up. Normal won't even tell you how many planes you shot down. You'll kind of have to guess what you thought you hit. Easy will tell you how many planes you shot down, but you still have to put in the claim, and there is a chance you won't get it. EasyS does away with everything and just basically gives you every kill that you got. Everything else in here we talked about in the workshop video, the first video, so I'm not going to go back over it. Those are the ones that will impact career the most. Next, we're going to go to Pilot Dossier. We did a pilot last time, but I'm going to pick somebody new. I'll list a new pilot. We're going to go with a German for this career. I did a British fellow in the last one. We're going to do a German guy here, so the manual squad deployment. Basically, again, you come down here, you'll pick the air service you want. So we're going to go Germany. And then you've got your entire line of squadrons that you can pick. Let's do, I want to go... If you really want to kind of get started and see what it's like at the very beginning of the war, you know, for if you were a German, you'd pick an early Asta. Let's see, even no, those down here at the bottom are the KEK ones. Right, these are 1916 March, right? Fokkers, that kind of stuff. Or you can go really early and do the recon squadrons, which I don't remember what they are off the top of my head. So nope. It's even earlier, 1915. But yeah, you can fly. Let's look up here. Nope. Oh, service. There we go. There we go, Rick Rawlings. Pay attention, Rick Rawlings. Here we go. So fly really early. 1915, you'll have the skies mostly to yourself. You can practice flight. You can practice the bombing. You could try the new recon wars. But for the sake of this one, I want to show you sort of the campaign in full bloom. So we're going to go sort of more of the middle late war. We'll go into at least 1917 and take a look at what we'll just go. Asta 2 is always a good for a run here. Actually, you know what? I want to try to get files. Let's try to get the files. So I'm going to advance forward. Take a look at 1918. See where I am in my Albatross D3. So if we go forward here a little bit, we should pick up a files pretty soon. And I want to get it so that the rank distribution is a little bit different. Oh, let's go months. Right there. There. So lowest rank's going to get the files. The higher ranks are going to get the Albatross DVA. This is our location. So we're going to go with this one. Proceed to enlistment. Give your pilot a name. All of my names go back to, I played the original Red Baron when it came out, and all of my fighter pilot names come from there. The internet really wasn't around much at that point, so my German name bank wasn't all that great. So I really only have one. I don't play the German fighter side all that much. But Gunther Clout is my German pilot name. Probably, I know Gunther is a good German name, but Clout's probably nothing like a German name, but that's what I got. Give him a place of birth. There we go. And a date of birth, again, keeping in mind how old you want your pilot to be. So I usually put pilots in January, so we'll go January 18th, which is not proper comma, and we'll make him 1897. We'll say he'll be a young fella. And you can pick your rank. If you want to start at the bottom and start early in the war, you can work your way all through to Rittmeister by the time 1918 rolls around, or even before, depending on how well you do if you survive. If you want to start a little bit higher up, we'll start with this guy right here. And for the sake of argument, I'm just going to put my wingman, my autopilot version on veteran. Okay. Pick a picture. Right, you can cycle through. Let's find a guy that looks pretty young. These guys all look a little bit older. Actually, that guy looks alright. He looks pretty young. And we'll enlist the pilot. We're going to make him active. This is our log. That's our logbook. This is going to take us to the introductory to the campaign screen here, right? So he's the active pilot. And now we're going to actually go click, and you'll notice, you may not have noticed, but when you go switch sides, the main screen photos will also switch to that side. Here's our campaign video. So I'll just go through that. We'll get welcomed in. We're now in the Great War as an airman. We're going to visit the duty room. It will tell you any offensives that are currently going on, or just the general stage of the war. It will sometimes tell you how intense air operations are. Little hope of victory. That doesn't sound good, but we're going to try anyway, right? So we'll click done. And that will take us to the campaign screen. So here in the campaign screen, we have a bunch of things we can check out. You can check out the fighters that are currently available. Now this is not our, oh, we do have an Albatross DVA. I guess, oh, because I started a slightly higher rank. There we go. So you could click on that, and it will give you the breakdown. You can take a look at the, what are we going to do here? The logbooks of each pilot. You can see, I think, yeah. So they'll tell you each pilot, they give you some sort of, I don't know if it's truly generic, but they give you a little bit of flavor. And they do tell you how many missions they've flown, how many kills they've got. So the squadron is living. As you go through, these people that are not aces, not historical aces, they will gain in skill. They will get kills on the board. They can even, I think they can even be promoted. So as you bring them along with you, the longer they last, the better the squadron will be overall. Look at our workshop. These are the 2 planes that are currently available. This is me. This is the ability, you have the option to change the plane of view and people that are not historical aces. Right? So if I decided I wanted to fly the falls, I could just cycle through until I got that, and then it should in a second here, I think it'll kick in. It's either here or I have to go back. Let me go back to the main, nope, there it goes. Kicks in and it tells you you've got the new machine, right? Gives you a little breakdown of it. So we'll fly a falls for this first mission. You can go take a look at your, these are the pilots that are available. As pilots are injured or killed, this number will go down. These are the active number of planes that you have in reserve. If the planes get destroyed but the pilots survive, you can reach a point where you don't have enough planes for everybody to fly, so some pilots will be grounded, potentially even you. So you want to try to make sure you get everybody back safely with their planes in order to keep the squadron up and running. Okay, this is our particular flight. Now you can see there's a lot of people in this flight, but if you click on them, it just gives you the breakdown. Their missions. This is a mirror of what we saw in the logbook, but just on the board. And then any victories that they have, you can see this. It's not a hugely successful squadron at the moment. And then we'll go down and take a look at the intel room. So you can see where the offensive is right here if we zoom in. Kind of inch our way over here. So you can see where the action is happening on the front. You click on current intel, this just gives you this sort of the breakdown like we got on the main campaign page. You can look for enemy squadrons and it will amass the list of Entente squadrons arrayed against you. You can see where they're at. So we'll give that a second. So at this point in 1918, there's going to be a lot of squadrons out there, so it's going to take a moment to tabulate all of this based on your position. Here we go. So you can pick all of the squadrons in the area. It will give you the breakdown of their plane, what's their overall morale, are any aces in there. It's pretty cool. You could go back and look at the ace dossier, so you can pick the different aces. And not only does it give you a little blurb about them, but for a lot of them, it tells you, I remember they were doing this a while ago, they were talking about adding this in. A lot of them, it will tell you who their foe was and what happened to him. So there's Leno Hawker right there. Right, for Richtofen. You can choose the squadron, or the side rather, and then the squadron, and then you can see all of the different aces. So that's pretty nice. A little bit of history right there. And you can request a transfer. So this is where you would request a transfer. It's going to find out who's available in the area that you could transfer to. Squadrons come online on their real dates and disappear when they're taken offline on their real dates. So you can pick these different squadrons. Yastas, I guess, for the Germans. And then you can even go look at the different regions. So there's 4 different regions you can look at. Keep in mind that not all air services, especially on the Entente side, will have squadrons in all regions at all times. So if you don't find any in your region, try a different one to transfer to. When you've got one you like, you go ahead and click on transfer. But like I said, keep in mind you're going to have to fly several missions in between when you request and when the transfer actually goes through. So don't just click on the time advance on the campaign screen thinking that it's going to transfer you. It won't. Okay. Now, this can be a problem if you get to the point where your squadron has run into some trouble, that you've transferred into a plane that's not in the game anymore, or the squadron end date is coming up and you need to get out of there. So I think OBD needs to put a button right here that says transfer right now, like I really mean it, right? So that you can avoid those issues. Maybe they'll put one there, maybe they won't. But that's the Intel screen. Duty room is just another version of who's flying in your squadron. What are their? Here's the kill board, right? And then these are the planes that each one's awarded. So it's a similar format, but just in a kind of different layout. Similar information in a different layout. Down here is the newspaper. This is the part that will change right here. So every now and again they'll give you a new newspaper with what's going on the front. It's pretty interesting. And then the previous edition. I don't know. One of these is maybe the bread shortage on page 3. I'm not sure. When you're done, you click done. Now what we're ready to do is take a look at what's going to be happening with these missions down here. So there's 2 buttons that are kind of important, and this one button up here I'll talk about in a second. This button is to time advance. If you put time advance on auto only, this is not going to show up. You won't have this button. If you put time campaign advance on auto / manual, you'll have this button. You can click on this. You can go to the next flight. You can advance a day, you can advance a week, you can advance a month. And click on that, and that will just automatically advance you. I'll show you that in just a moment. Okay. If you see the time, 8:22 in the morning. We're in May 1918. That should be daylight. But I'm not a big fan of flying dark missions in this game. So just to be safe, you have this button. You can bump the time forward by up to 3 hours. Then it cycles back. So if you get caught where you think you're going to be running into a mission before the sun comes up and you don't want to do that, or you just want to fly a little bit later, you can bump forward up to 3 hours. Okay. Now, here's where the time advance comes in. Generally speaking, I don't think any pilot, maybe at some points in the war, but generally speaking, I don't think anybody would enlist and then fly that day. It's probably not going to happen. So if you look at view my pilot, right, you're going to see my enlistment date was May 5th, 1918. It's currently May 5th, 1918. Probably going to want to put some time in. So generally what I've had a habit of doing is joining my air service, and then I'll come down here, and depending on the time in the war we're at, you can advance up to a month. For early in the war, pilots would generally get a lot of training. Later on, later in the war, you might say, well, a week. They get a week. They get thrown into a plane. They're sent around the aerodrome a couple times. They get their mess kit, and they're sent off to their squadron where they may not even unpack. When you do advance time, you're going to get a breakdown of what happened. So you can see the different missions on the different days. You can see if anybody, so we got one person wounded here, somebody killed, right? So you can already see things are happening even when you're not there. So that's how time advance works. It's a new day, May 12th. A week later, ready to go. Oh, we got a new piece of information for our newspaper to read. Go back and take a look at that. Now you'll notice first of all, the squadron, we only have 8 out of 12 available. So we had some guys die and some guys, I think, wounded, but I'm not sure if they show up on here. And then in our flight, it's much smaller than it was before. So your flights will vary. Who's in your flight will vary. Those are all important bits of information. Okay. So now that we've advanced time a little bit, we check the day. Yeah, I guess that's military time. I'm going to advance that because that seems like that's the morning. So I'm going to go up to, 7 o'clock, make sure I'm not flying a night mission. And then we're going to go to the briefing room. This is where we're actually going to see what the mission is going to be. So this page is all of your campaign information. When you're ready to go fly a mission, you click on one of these 2 buttons, which are right next to each other for some reason. So let's do that. Let's go to the briefing room. Very bad weather is hampering our normal operations. Do you want to proceed the briefing room and flying away? Nope, I don't want to do a mission in very bad weather, especially when we're doing tutorial here. So all flights canceled. You'll get this quite a lot throughout the war, especially if you're doing historical mission frequency. You'll see that. New day come around. Looks like we're gonna get one this time. The longest time I didn't notice the wing was missing right there. Didn't even notice it. All right, so here we go. We've got our mission is ground forces support. So what we're going to do is B-flight carry this distant front. We're going to be at 3,900 meters, 4,000 meters. Patrol the area. So basically what we're doing is preventing anything on our troops. And also probably there probably be like some recon craft that are spotting for them around the area. So you'll take a look at the map. Let's zoom in here. Now you see these concentric circles are sort of the areas in which you could typically expect to find planes if you fly off your flight path. So let's say you've done all this patrol, everything's looking good, and you just want to fly around for a little bit. You got petrol left, you're not wounded, your machine's running well, you got plenty of ammo. If you fly, anywhere in this area, there's a reasonable chance that you could find planes to engage with. If you go in here, there's a smaller chance, and outside of this, not so much, unless planes wander out on their own. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what's going on there. If you're short for time and you want to do an air start, you can click here, and that will actually start you flying. If you have a second squadron or a second flight that's going up, you can click here, and it will toggle between them just to see who's in it. You are going to want to remember for claim purposes the names of probably a couple of these people. So you're going to have to put them in as witnesses. So just kind of remember one or two. I don't think it matters who they are exactly. You can alter your waypoints. So this circle up waypoint, right? This is where we're going to gain altitude. Let's say you want to move that back from the front a little bit, right? We weren't really that close to it, but if we want to circle back here in safety, we can. If you're like, no, I want to get a little closer to the front. I want to be there a little bit sooner. You can move it a little bit closer. Probably actually up is pretty good. And then you can cycle through the different waypoints and adjust their position on the map. So if you want to change things a little bit, you can. Now, if you're meeting recon aircraft, if you're escorting or intercepting or things like that, you can mess up the mission if you change your core waypoints, so just be careful about that. If you want to do a custom paint job for your plane, this is where you do it. It's going to get a list of them. Actually, you know what? I don't want. Let's do it. Let's go in the briefing thing here. Show you this first. So before we pick a custom skin, I want to show you these are the planes in the flight. This is going to be interesting because when you have mixed flights of planes, they tend to run at different speeds, and sometimes the faster guys will head out ahead of you and engage the enemy and leave you behind, or leave you behind when the enemies are coming. So that's good. For ammunition, you generally want to go with 100% ammo. For fuel, if you're doing patrols, like short patrols, or you're balloon busting, or you're doing a rail yard attack, sometimes you don't want to go with a full belly full of fuel because it will slow you down. It will make you less maneuverable. It does impact your flight characteristics. So you can adjust the amount of fuel. Probably for this mission, I'll go like 90 because we are doing sort of a back and forth patrol. We want to make sure we got plenty of petrol. So we'll get that up there. So now let's do our custom paint job. You can pick any of the aces. So first of all, it will filter out only the paint jobs that are available for the plane you're flying. So you don't have to worry if it's on here, you're good. You can pick it. If you don't want to take an ace one, you go down to the bottom and you'll always have the default squadron skin for that. So what were we in? I think we're in Yasta 3. Is there Yasta 3 anymore? Nope. We'll just pick, let's do Yasta 4, there we go, 1918. And so yeah, some of them actually have 1917, 1918 versions with the different crosses and so on. All right. Once you pick that and you check this, you won't have to pick it every mission. So if you create your own custom paint job, you apply it once and then click on that, check this box here, and you won't have to do it again. If you are short for time, and sometimes, like for example, if you're doing a bombing an airfield, right, it'll be an airfield way down here, right? You gotta fly all the way down there. You can pick alternate target. Since we're not bombing anything, there's no target, but it will cycle through some different targets that you could bomb, and you can find one that's closer. For this one, optional flight, I think we'll just change the waypoint configuration in terms of what section of the front we're covering. This one's good, so we're gonna go with this. Once you got everything like you like it, you kind of know your squadron, at least a couple of people's names. You know, in general, you got to be there for 23 minutes. I'm not leading the flight, so the flight leader will take care of that. We're just going to go. So I'll meet you there. All right, here we are on the field. I have paused the game briefly because everybody's going to start rolling pretty quickly and we don't have a lot of time. But basically, the flight runs from left to right. So they're going to take off down there. It's going to run down through me. If I miss my opportunity, that guy's not going to wait. He's going to take off. So you kind of want to be ready to go when they are hitting you for your turn to take off in the flight line. They don't really let their engines warm up or anything like that. It's not modeled. So it's pretty much just get up and go. So I'm going to unpause and press E to start my engine. You'll notice the guns are cycled as well. Automatically does that. These guys down here are going to be starting their engines. Take a look. You get some nice little flame effects there as those engines ignite. You can look around. You can check your control surfaces. Make sure everything's good to go. Then you're going to be on your way, so be ready. These guys will take off. I better get going. So throttle forward. Light scout plane, you're going to want to just kind of keep it in the center of the runway, a little bit of rudder. Once it speeds up, nose down slightly, pick up some speed, and away we go. Ease back on the stick. Don't climb too steep. Don't want to stall this close to the ground. So kind of follow your wingman, especially if you're not flight lead, that'll be good. What's going to happen is they're going to gain a little altitude and then they're going to head off to the climbing waypoint. So now that I'm up, I'm going to throttle down a little bit. German planes, mostly the inline planes, mostly do auto mixture, so you don't generally have to worry about that. These Mercedes and other engines, so you don't have to fiddle around with a mixture too much. The rotary ones, you're still going to have to. So like your DR1. Follow these guys around. Now sometimes you could conceivably be attack taken off, even if it's not a scramble, so it's always good to look around, make sure nobody's nearby, and then settle in. Now if you want to fly the entire mission yourself, you just follow these guys, they'll take you the whole trip. If, on the other hand, you're like me and you don't really have time to do all of that, this is a good place to switch on autopilot. So I'm going to do Control-Shift-A, put my autopilot on, and you'll notice that it's going to pull me into formation. If you're not sure where you should be in formation in the flight, putting autopilot on momentarily is a good way to do that. I'm going to take a look at my external view here, see how things are going. So here's my plane, and my pretty nice. Look at that! It's a nice looking paint job there. Look at that! It's pretty cool. Okay. It's hard to do to get it to wrap around cleanly like that. If you try to make these, you'll find out. Getting them to wrap around is tricky. So what's going to happen is this autopilot will fly me in formation. If I need to, it'll fight for me. It would land me. It'll do everything it needs to do. Generally, I'm going to use it to get to the climb point. I'm going to get up to altitude, and then I'll take over when we start approaching the front lines. So M for map. Since I'm flying for the Germans, there's a much greater chance of me running into enemy aircraft on this side of the line, so it's a little bit risky running in autopilot. I'm just kind of showing you how to do it. Generally, with the Entente side, which I mostly fly for, you can safely get in and out of the front zone on autopilot without worrying too much. And then one of the joys of autopilot is then you can speed up. So shift plus and shift minus will give you varying levels of time compressed depending on your processor. So sometimes you can get up to 12. Some people probably get up even higher than that. Sometimes in late war you might only get to 8. It just depends on what's going on and what your processor feels it can handle. So this is what I would typically do, is I would just kind of use autopilot. I'll have my finger on the pause key, the P key, in case anything weird happens. So I'm ready to jump back in. But with a job and a family and some other hobbies, I usually don't have time to fly big long missions. Some lovely clouds today. Just a reminder from some of the other keys we looked at in the combat quick flight. The Z will show you information like your altitude, your airspeed, the time, actual time, if you want to mention that in your claims report. So Z toggles that on and off. F5 will give you some information that if you want to check it out while you're flying. Autopilot, that's kind of cool. F5 also toggles that off. And you'll notice even at 12 time compression, it's taken us a long time to get up to altitude. And this is a relatively late war plane that climbs a lot faster than what you're going to be doing early in the war. So getting up to altitude is half the battle. A lot of aces mention that in their books about the challenge of flying high enough, the bitter cold that you would experience. Sometimes your guns would freeze up. So now we've reached altitude and we're getting close to the front, so I'm going to slow down and I'm going to get back in the cockpit and I'm going to take over. So Control Shift A takes me off autopilot. I'm going to try to match my throttle to what the autopilot was at. Take a look around. You do have the option of manipulating the radiator louvers in things like the Falls or the Albatross, but they don't do anything in the game. They're not modeled. It's kind of fun to play with when you're supposed to be looking around and avoiding getting shot down. So what we're doing is we are approaching the front from the north. We're going to fly south along it. See if we can engage any fighters or bombers that might be harassing our troops below. Looking for ground attack craft, stuff like that. And I presume our flight leader will have us attack if we do, because we're a pretty good force right now. We got a pretty good force of planes. The Falls is not definitely as nice in instrumentation as the RE8 was. Noticing that. Also not going to be as fast as those Albatrosses probably. Pretty sure the DVA was faster. Should be sturdier though. Basically what's going to happen is we're going to approach the front. I am going to go along with them, and if anything exciting happens, I'll come back at that point. So we'll see you then. Okay, so here we are back for a minute. There's another flight over there coming at us. You can see the flat gave them away. It's a good thing about this sim is that you never know what's going to happen. You never know who you're going to run into. So let's see what we've got coming at us here. These look like SE5As maybe, or camels? Can't quite tell. There's dihedral. Oh, those look like camels, short nose. So it looks like our flight is going to intercept. You do not have to give any command for them to attack. They will automatically do so. Looks like they're going in. Now here's the thing. This is where you start making your decisions that pay off later in the fight, hopefully. You might be tempted to find a nice target and just dive right down on him, but that puts you right in the middle of things. Other planes can have the opportunity to shoot at you. Generally, it's best to stay up at least for a while if you can. Some individualized paint schemes down there, so we're probably dealing with a known pilot. Try not to run into my guys. They're starting to get to the point where they can shoot at us. So we're going to have to make some decisions here. So I was coming around on that guy. He's diving down. I am not going after him at this point. I'm going to wait. See what else is going on here. Getting shot at by this guy. Haven't actually flown a falls in a long time, so I'm not even sure what the best approach is. See if I can clear that guy's tail for him. Whoa. Meanwhile, I'm getting shot at myself. We'll slow down, try the old Top Gun maneuver. Whoa. This guy really wants a piece of me. Try to not give him one. Ugh. I got a little low there. My head tracking went wonky. My screen went black for a minute, so not exactly where I want to be. Yeah, it's following me. We can do some sort of reversal on this guy. He's in a camel, so if he's a good pilot, I'm going to struggle to maneuver with him. Looks like I got at least a moment's break. Is he trying to head out of town? See where everybody else is. Yeah, looks like he's making a break for home turf, heading west. See if we can catch him before he gets too far. So you want to double check and make sure nobody else is sizing you up. I have to explain that one when I get back. There you go. Looks like he's got a good head start on me. I don't know if I'll be able to catch him in a reasonable amount of time. Okay, I'm not going to get any lower on this guy. He wants to run away? Fine. Take an opportunity to get back. See if we can find anybody else. Nice thing about this is well, flight members will form new groups. If you come close to them and the flight leader is gone, they'll actually form up on you and create a new mini flight, and you can actually continue the mission, which is pretty amazing. I wasn't actually convinced the first couple of times it happened that that was actually happening because it didn't seem possible, but it certainly seems like they do that. Trying to avoid the flak here. I don't even know on this plane what my altimeter is, if I even have one. All I know is I feel like I want to be higher than I am. Okay, so there's something going on over here. Let's go take a look at this one. The plane is right there. That's the British plane. So we'll go see if we can tuck in behind him. I might want to rip my wings off in the process of doing so. Jammed one of my guns. Which gun is firing? It's the right one. A few hits on him. Now, the tricky part is if they start doing stuff like this, not running into them, not shredding your plane. Where'd he go? He's over there. Not getting too low. Yeah, he was playing possum. He's not dead. That was close. Let me try unjamming my gun. Where's it? Control? Oh, yeah. So Control U attempts to unjam your guns. That one doesn't look like it's going to unjam. Something back there, I think it's a balloon, so it should be okay. Heading towards this guy's lines. Just go in a straight line. Long range shot on him. What is this guy doing? Do you see that little trail of smoke? Oh, it looks like his engine's out. Might have knocked his engine out. Probably going down here. Can't quite tell if he's down for good or not. Take a quick look around me. Yeah, I think he's going in. I thought I heard him crash. Did he crash? Yeah, right there. There he is, right there. He's down. Alright, let's get out of here. Head east. Take a quick look around, make sure nobody's coming after us. So yeah, I'm sure it won't show up on YouTube, but I did have dots on, and so in the distance you'll be able to see just these little tiny dots. Like sometimes you'll be like, oh, you'll zoom in, oh, it's a balloon. Well, yeah, it wasn't really moving. But that's all you'll see is these tiny little dots until you get closer. Flying over one of their artillery regiments. Let's try to not get hit. Artillery generally has been beefed up in this version over the last version. So I'll try to gain some altitude. Alright, I'm going to take a look and see if I can find anybody else from my flight to join back up with, or anything else interesting before I head back. And I'll bring you back if we do. Okay, I am heading back towards my own side of the lines. As I look up, I see there's some planes above me. Can't quite, they have sort of the square wings of, like you would expect an Allied plane to have, but they're not. They're getting archied about the same time I am, but it seems like the two force lines are pretty close to each other, so it could possibly be that. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on. I just lost where they went. Don't really want them coming down and messing with me because I have a significant altitude deficit. Lost them for the moment. I had it here. Generally, if you lose planes above you that you want to find, one of the safest things you can do is just start doing sort of a climbing spiral. If they're diving down on you, it makes it hard for them to get a nice shot. I don't see them diving down on me, but that's usually just when they are. Another interesting thing about if you're flying a rotary engine plane, like a Camel, is that you can blip your engine and your plane will get relatively quiet for a moment, and if someone's approaching you, you can hear their engine, which with an inline you can kind of go, you could go way down to idle, but it's hard to, you know, with the engine blip it's just momentarily and then you're right back at it. It's a little harder with an inline. Okay, wherever those planes went, they haven't killed me yet, so I'm going to progress on towards the east. Take a look at the map. Sometime in mid-flight, your instructions will update in terms of where the map tells you to go. So yeah, look, the map is telling me this line right here is now telling me to divert to this aerodrome. So it's basically your mission's good. You want to go divert there. So we'll go off in that area and try to find it. I just saw it a little while ago. It's down here, right there. We'll head over to that aerodrome, see if there's already planes. Look, there's already somebody on the field, probably from our flight. So we'll head over there, and as long as nobody attacks me in the interim, we'll land, and then wrap this video up with a few more thoughts about the campaign. So I'll see you as they're coming in for the approach, unless anything else happens. Alright, we're coming in for our landing. Nobody else has bothered us. Still going to be landing to the west is the way that the AI always does it. If you look at the end of the field, you can already see a couple of guys down there, probably from my flight. Right. So we want to come in the same path as them, so if anybody else stumbles along, they don't run into us. Come in nice and slow. Get a little, lose a little speed there. Oh. What's that one tree? My throttle is completely on idle right now. So we're going to come in. Slow down, not stall. Right before touchdown, kind of pull up a little bit. And get down. And we're actually going to go zipping by these guys a little bit. And you can wiggle your tail. Hope there's no fence. Yeah, I haven't actually landed the fouls in quite some time, so I ran off the field a little bit. But that's basically how you do it. If you want to then try to make up for yourself and at least look a little bit cool, work your way back over to the hangars. Give them the total I meant to do that look as you come in. This field's got interesting. I don't think it's actually been bombed recently. I think it's just because it's close to the front. It's showing that crater texture. Isn't very reassuring. Go right by the windsock. And then just E for ignition. It turns the ignition off. I think. Oh, Shift E. There you go. Shift E turns it off. That's it. One career mission down. Now let's go back to the shell and talk a little bit about what to do next. All right, here we are. So you get your breakdown of what happened. Total flying time, 49 minutes. Remember, I was autopiloting for the first big chunk of that. Congratulations on your claims. Your claims will be investigated. So we did attack that camel, shot him down. We'll see if we get credit for it. Aircraft was moderately damaged. Take 2 days to repair. So that those bullets through my port wing there. And 6 aircraft took off. 3 landed safely. And now let's go take a look at the details here. So here's what we got. Oh, we got 3 guys killed. 3 of our guys were killed. Craft destroyed by enemies. Now that you'll notice because of the location of the aerodromes, it sets it off a little bit. So that's the 1, 2, 1. This guys are here. Paul, Eric, and Johan were killed. Fired 129 rounds, hit with 18. And this, because I have claim set to easy, this will tell me how many I should claim. This will be scratched out if you have it set to normal. Now you're going to want to remember the name of somebody that's still alive. This is like your last chance to do it. So these guys aren't going to help me very much. Dieter, on the other hand, Dieter von Massau, he's going to help me. So I'm going to use him as my witness. We're going to click done, and that's going to take us to the claims page. So this is where you put that in. Let's get Dieter on here. Let's get Dieter on the board right there. Back me up on this one. I shot down, I'm saying that was a camel. And then I'm going to say enemy flight brown Sopwith scouts encountered over the lines just above cloud level as directed by shell bursts. Engaged one enemy attempting to escape, drove him down, and he was seen to crash with the engine out just over the lines. And you can put, if you want to put the time, if you want to put the town it was closest to, or the aerodrome was close to, you can, but just something like that. All right, so you put that in, you're going to say done. It's going to say, are you sure about that? You know, if you had like 2 enemies, you'd want to put them down, and you can say okay, and it's going to take you back. Now, generally speaking, yeah, here's this is the damage that we saw. That was not a good flight for us. Generally speaking, you won't find out that same day if your plane was confirmed. It'll take a couple days. Now look, yeah, 4 out of 12, right? That was a rough flight. So we've got, these guys are available. These planes are in repair, so those guys can't fly. You can take a look at your claim. Confirmation, right there. So yeah, here's our pending, and it'll say, like, look, it'll say down there, this is probable. Witness was flying in the area at the time. Okay. So go back now. Here's what you're gonna do. And the next thing you do is go to your next mission. If you fly multiple missions on one day, it's just going to take you to a mission later in the day. The war is like 4 years long. If you fly every available mission, some days you won't fly at all, some days you'll fly more than one, but roughly if you fly like 1 mission a day because you have a job and stuff, it's going to take you 4 years to get through one campaign of real life. So what I typically do is I'll fly no more than once every 3 days. So if I just flew a mission, I would advance 2 days. Sometimes after I make ace or I get a promotion, I'll take a week off. Occasionally I'll take a month off because aces often did that, you know, when they were going to be transferring to a new squadron or they were testing out a new plane. So I try to mirror what actual aces would, or actual pilots, I guess, not necessarily aces, actual pilots would go through. If you read their memoirs, there's a lot of downtime. They're not, even when flights take off every day, they're not on them all the time. So to try to get through a campaign, I like to advance time several days in between missions. Occasionally in Bloody April or something, I'll fly a couple missions a day because aces did get multiple kills in multiple flights, multiple sorties. And so sometimes I'll do that in really high periods of activity. But even then, I've lasted a couple of years in the war and I've had well over 100 flights. So even if you do that, you're still going to have plenty of flights. You're going to have plenty of times to get your guys' score on the board. It's just something to think about when you're running your campaign, not necessarily doing it every day or every flight even. So click done. Victory's now been confirmed. You've been awarded a goblet for your actions. The Ehrenbecher, right there it is right there. I'm sure it says something really cool. I don't speak German, read German, so I'm not sure. But yeah, that's good. We got a confirmed kill on our first flight. That's pretty good. Or at least our first combat flight. I'm sure this guy did lots of training flights and stuff around. That's why we skip forward some time. Now, once you've done that, you go take a look at your pilot. Here he is. Next page. So it's every mission is going to be logged on here and also quick combats if you have that in the workshop. But generally speaking, for your campaign, everything's going to be logged here. For some reason, I'm getting this. I don't really want to know how bad my accuracy is. And then your total flight time. And then the next page will have your claims, which may scroll on. And if you look at the remarks, it will tell you sometimes if you shoot down an ace. So this one was just a British airman. Yeah, I can't scroll over to it. Royal Naval Squadron number 10. British airman, not an ace this time. Okay. And that's kind of how that goes. And basically, those are the core elements of the campaign. This pilot is well on his way. If he flies those missions and works to keep his, help his squad stay alive, those guys did not have a good flight. We're going to have to be waiting for new pilots to come in. We're going to be doing short flights, short number of individuals per flight. It's going to be rough, but we got to fight back from that. And then later on, I can maybe transfer to it's May already, but transfer to a different squadron or at least help pull these guys up by the end of the war. Can't change the end date of the war. That's fixed. The air operations were never really going to do that in World War I. They affected the war by providing information to the ground forces and zeroing in artillery, stuff like that. The fighters shot down the recon crafts that were doing that on their side, and the enemy fighters would shoot down your recon craft who were doing it for your side. And that's kind of how the war went. It's very well represented in Wings Over Flanders Field, and I hope you enjoy the campaign aspect of this. Do have a couple more videos I might potentially do down the road, but this should at least get you started. These first three kind of get you started on your way to enjoying all of the many benefits of Wings Over Flanders Field, especially the new Between Heaven and Hell 2 with the Recon Wars added on. So that's it for today. Until the next video, I hope you have found this beneficial, and thank you for your time.